How do you build training that matters? How do you connect the emotional with the technical? Today on the Culture Hack, we've got John Wiehler. He's the president and CEO of Wiehler, and he's going to tell us about his exciting ideas for the future on how to build training that makes a difference. Check it out on the Culture Hack. Hey, it's Adam here, and you're watching the Culture Hack, where we're talking about how to create engaged workspaces that unlock the potential of your teams and drive your business forward in ways you've never seen. So stay tuned. John Wiehler, welcome to the Culture Hack. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Oh, thanks again, man. This is exciting.
It's been really fun. We talked about how your dad started this legacy and then how you built the business based on those values. And we had a great story about mistakes that were made and how to own them and how to move forward. So definitely check out episode 3 if you get a chance. And I really want to talk about moving forward and what's next for Wiehler in this episode.
Yeah, I think it's it's a new year, 2025. I'm really fortunate. I work with just such a professional woman named Chelsea, who runs my HR, and she's my right hand, she's my left hand person, and she's where the rubber meets the road when it comes to kind of like implementing our culture within Wiehler and making sure that it's maintained. And so we're in goal setting mode, and so for 2025, I think what we've really looked at is how do we authentically train our staff in the trades? Kind of for people who don't know, you go to like school in state technical school, right? You work 2,000 hours, you go to technical school. You work 2,000 hours in the field, you go to technical school for 2 months, right? Back to the field, back to school, right? And the learning in school is generally not very related at all to the work that people do in the field. But then in the field, there's not really time to learn. The majority of projects we work on have tight timelines, right? Like where there isn't that time to step back and really get through like the whys and the how we do stuff. It's a lot of training on the fly. And so this year at Wiehler, we're really going to focus on how do we bridge that gap and create real training environment for our staff to better hone their skills in a less time competitive space.
Right. It's like everybody has this long list of things they need to learn, right? And every year it's like, you need to learn this, you need to check this, you need to do this, you need to do this. But meanwhile, you're fixing a flooded basement or...
Yeah, right. You're trying to roughen a house and you got 2 days to do it, right? You come in there, the site's not quite ready, so you actually don't have 2 days, you got a day and a half. Meanwhile, you've got an apprentice with you who you're supposed to be training on like how he's supposed to do all this stuff, but you've got less and less time every time. And so there isn't that just natural tie-in to be able to help expedite the true understanding of our staff. And I think especially being an employee market in Calgary right now, where like it's competitive for staff. Well, how do we invest in our staff that's good for them and the company over the long term, right? And I think that's the fun challenge this year. I think if it was easy, every company would do it. Nobody in our industry does it. So, how do we invent this? It's fun.
I love that. I can see the entrepreneur in you coming out. It's like, all right.
This is a problem. I've seen this problem. I don't know how we're going to solve it, but this year we're going to solve it. And I'm really fortunate to have a team that's motivated with me. And that's the best thing I can ever hope for anybody, is that we're able to surround yourself with a good team.
Well, and I love what you said about it being a cultural thing, right? When you're talking about time and busyness, it's never a time problem, it's a priority problem. And if you treat it like a time problem, you're going to schedule it in, and then people are going to treat it like a time problem.
Yep.
But a priority problem is different. That's a culture. It means we believe that this is the right thing to do.
Yep.
It means I believe that I will push that appointment a couple hours and take the time and make sure my apprentice does. And right, like human behavior is built so much on this belief. So I love it. It's the way you talked about it being a cultural problem. So what's the first step? You have somebody that works with you that's just sounds like a real superhero in your company. So what's the first step to try and get buy-in from your staff for this idea?
So it's been really cool. We're really fortunate. We work with a woman who used to be an instructor at State, and at all the companies that she experienced at State, she chose to come to work at Wiehler, and she didn't want to teach at Wiehler. She wanted to go back to being a plumber, go back to her roots. And we had a great sit-down meeting with her yesterday and started to craft some like to bridge like her experience in training tradespeople and how do we implement that right within Wiehler. And what we came up with, like, so step one, which I'm ideally still going to happen in January, right? Training our trainers. So often in our industry, right, we put apprentices with journeymen, but we don't prep journeymen to teach, right? We take people who are very good at what they do, like they're the best at what they do, so we give them somebody, say, "Go teach them." But we don't teach people how to teach. We just assume that if we send this guy with that person long enough, eventually that person will learn something. Sure, I like to call that the osmosis method of learning. Right? We have a high concentration of learned knowledge here. We have a low concentration here. Eventually, right, this should percolate up. And so our goal, just to try to take the first bite of the elephant, what does training our trainers look like?
I like that idea, because same thing happens in engineering. Right? It's like the best engineer is promoted, and now they're in charge of 30 other engineers, but because they're the best, they're also the busiest. So they have the least amount of time to actually invest in things like mentorship, right? Because anyone can learn to crimp a line or tighten a joint or how to inspect or quality checklists and all that kind of stuff. But like, how do you teach someone to take a moment and listen to the client? Right? And I'm sure you get the clients that when you go there, like, oh my God, I'm gonna have to listen to Jim talk for like 30 minutes about this, that, and the other. But like, that's part of that specific client, right? Having that empathy with what they're doing. Like, so, when you're building your training program, how are you balancing this like emotional and technical and this type of stuff?
Oh man, that's one of my most exciting things that I like to think about is like, how do we nurture like the emotional side of our staff? And like, we're a group of tradespeople. Like, the stereotypes are generally based on this stuff for a reason. Like, the men and women who work in our industry are generally not used to talking about feelings or emotions. So a lot of it is just like starting at a baseline. Like, what is a feeling? Like, what is anger? Like, what is resentment? Right? Like, how do you tell when you're walking into somebody's house that you're mad? And it starts really at a base level that like, what does learning look like? How do you know you're learning? And really taking a very fundamental approach to training that we're just starting at the ground level, and that's okay. Nobody's got to come with a prerequisite amount of information. A lot of people have ended up in the trades because like they didn't like school or they were mechanically inclined. So now you take these people who are like didn't like school or are mechanically inclined. Now you're putting them to a brand new role of like teaching people and documenting stuff and talking about learning, and it's just really like supporting that person in that role, that it's okay for them to struggle. That struggle is normal. That the frustration is normal. They're going to say stuff. They're going to tell somebody something a few different ways, and it's not going to land. Well, how do you deal with that? And my goal is that they don't have to learn the same way I did, which is just by screwing it up enough times, right? And having people quit, or like my staff having the courage to tell me they didn't feel good. Well, now my thing is like, well, how do I help our staff so they don't have to go through that same experience?
I think when I think about training, there's this temptation to design the curriculum, right? A couple of people get behind closed doors, we put it on the board, this is the curriculum, you build it to perfection, and then you talk about rolling it out. But I think what I'm hearing from you is having the courage to create this space where it's like, we don't have all the answers. We're going to start, and we're going to let it grow to whatever it needs to be. And if that includes just space for having real discussion, then let's do that, right? If it needs maybe a video there or a reference card there, then so be it. But like, these types of things that really address the emotional and the technical, I like to think that they can't be built, they have to be grown.
Well, I'm glad you say it. I'm glad that's your viewpoint, because it gives a little bit of like that just course direction. Because I think that's the most intimidating thing is like everything that's worth doing is worth like trying and doing wrong. But it is like, well, how do we do this in a way that matters for our staff so it doesn't feel like it's a box check, right? That it's not like, well, they just put me in this because they got to fill it out. Like, how do we make it so that people genuinely feel like that we're investing them because we care about them individually? That my belief is that if I help them be more successful, I'll be more successful. But I got to invest in them first, right? And how do we do that in a way that they feel that it's actually genuine and not self-serving for me?
I love that. I love it. Well, you picked certainly an exciting challenge for 2025. And as you can see, I'm totally into it. So that's pretty fantastic. John, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show. I appreciate your insights and your empathy for those around you and your team and your clients and all that. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Adam. I've really enjoyed this. This has been fun.
Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
If you didn't have a chance to check out the rest of the episodes with John, we talked about legacy, we talked about scaling a company, how to look at the long-term relationships with your client, how to own up to your mistakes, and now we've got a pretty cool way of reinventing training in the trades coming forward. So how can people get in touch with Wiehler?
The best way to do it is through our website. Basically just Google Wiehler, Wiehler, but no matter how you spell it, you're probably going to find us.
Amazing. See you on the next time on The Culture Hack. Hey, thanks for watching The Culture Hack. Do you want to chat culture and engagement? Give us a call and come on the show.